Hello again, everybody. This is Brandon Peppler. We are on the 6th entry of our Harry Potter marathon, The Half-Blood Prince. Now, those of you who are new to my channel or have just come across this video by accident, this is only an audio commentary, and I won't be providing the background audio from the movie, nor the video footage from it, due to copyright. However, you are welcome to sync the video up with either a physical copy, be it DVD or Blu-ray, or from a streaming service. But so basically what's going to happen is that for now you are welcome to grab your any food and drinks, get yourselves all prepped, and you could pause right now. Alright, are all of you ready? If so, you should be on the 0 mark, and we will begin to play on my mark. 1, 2, 3, and play. Now, in the book series, this was another one that I haven't read, and it's really one I want to try to actually want to in terms of the storyline, and it's just remarkable how it just immediately picks up after the Order of the Phoenix. Right at the very moment when Voldemort was ultimately finally believed to have returned because of Cornelius Fudge, and turns out that the smear campaign on both Harry and Dumbledore has pretty much been diminished, but of course the damage has already been done. Now, from what I remember, that this moment of attack, I remember the YouTuber, the Dom, actually talking about this, and that continuity-wise, well, I wouldn't quite say of how this would actually work with Death Eaters attacking Muggles in London. But, I mean, at first I thought it was going to be some kind of like a search. I mean, given that, of course, they couldn't get the prophecy of Harry. And from what I remember, that this bridge attack was like it was like a sort of anachronism, because I wouldn't think that this bridge would have been done until in later years, because we should still be within the mid-1990s at this point. I mean, again, I could be wrong, so you are welcome to correct me if I made any kind of goof-ups in terms of my commentary. But so another thing was that it was supposed to be the the Brockdale, sorry, the Brockdale Bridge that was destroyed, supposed to be the Millennium Bridge. So, as a bit of a recap, but the Millennium Bridge was constructed between 1998 and 2000, so there is the anachronism right there. Just, it's pretty close. You could probably kind of guess it. It kind of fits in with the times, and it is pretty much based on 90s architecture. But so how again, I wasn't quite exposed to the book, but when it came to the film, I was pretty much going blind, and over time I was learning a little bit about some of the lore through, obviously, the different YouTube channels, like, as I mentioned, the Dom, and also Harry Potter Folklore, or Harry Potter Lore as it's called. But both are incredible in terms of giving, like, not only information on book adaptations, but also even dive into some of the lore. Well, Dom specifically goes into film analysis, while Harry Potter lore goes into extensive backgrounds into the characters, locations, and even events. Very convincing indeed. Yeah, but why would dragon's blood be dripping like that? But then again, you would think that Slughorn and Dumbledore would already have a very extensive and very long friendship. So, Horace Slughorn has been played by George Harris, who, of course, had. Wait a second. No, wait, backdrop. Or back up. But, so, excuse the hiccup, but he was played by Jim Broadbent. Well, I brought up George Harris by accident because both had collaborated in the film The Dogs of War with Christopher Walken, and I didn't quite bring on to. I didn't quite actually bring that up in the commentary where Shacklebolt was first introduced, and I didn't make that connection, so. But Broadbent, he has a he himself is another veteran actor. He's been in a number of films, such as the instance with, as I mentioned, Dogs of War. He has also been in The Borrowers from '97, The Crying Game, Richard III with Ian McKellen, The Avengers with Uma Thurman and Ralph Fiennes. He was also in Moulin Rouge, Gangs of New York, Around the World in 80 Days, Hot Fuzz. He's also been in the 2 Paddington films. And his most recent film is The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle. And so just recently he was first introduced into Game of Thrones in the 7th season. But, I mean, again, another veteran actor who has an extensive career and so a little bit of a background on Horace Slughorn. So it's quite unknown whether he is pureblood or half-blood, but he was sorted into Slytherin, and that, having been previously a student, he had been the potions master for at least 50 years, from 31 to 81. But his family is, of course, declared as pure blood, and they were very wealthy. But they never believed in pure blood superiority, as many of the other families did. But of course, they were encouraged to make friends with, quote-unquote, the right sort. But in the instance of him being in Slytherin, he's never been declared as a dark wizard, because Slughorn was never a partition of it. He did have a bit of a budding with Dolores Umbridge. I mean, right at the time when he was around, at least a teacher. So he saw Umbridge as idiotic, and he never had a liking to her. So right around this time, it's around here that Bill Weasley and Babaton's champion Fleur Delacour would have been engaged around this time. Yeah, so on top of that, they would have already gotten their owl results. And Harry would have earlier on had decided to, of course, want to become an Auror. So, another bit of trivia here for those of you. So Narcissa Malfoy was played by Helen McCrory. I haven't been much familiar with her work, to be honest. But so she's been in quite a few films actually. Most of her roles consist of being on television. She does some stage work, such as the instance where so McQuarrie was in Interview with a Vampire, the drama The Queen. She was in Skyfall. So, I mean, she was in one episode of Doctor Who called The Vampires of Venice. She was in 12 episodes of Penny Dreadful. And she's been in a number of stage works, some of them being, of course, Shakespearean works, such as Macbeth and Twelfth Night. But she was also in a stage performance of Pride and Prejudice. But so for those of you who are not familiar with how the Weasley twins got their show going, it was because of having financial backing from Harry. He had earned a prize right after the events of the Goblet of Fire, but ultimately he turned that money down because he didn't want to associate the prize money with the... He didn't want to associate that kind of money with, given that he, of course, watched Cedric Diggory die, and It's kind of seemed like blood money, so he gave that prize money to friend George to help get their joke shop business going. Lavender brown, folks. But back on the topic of Narcissa Malfoy, she wasn't exactly a Death Eater. Rather, she is pure blood, and she believed in the importance of blood purity. Hence, her support of her husband. Ultimately, this was in jeopardy. All this was kind of changing because Lucius was put into Azkaban, and her son's life was in danger. But so essentially, she and Bellatrix are cousins to Sirius. Both of them being sisters, obviously. But so, I've been kind of wondering what happened to Spinner's Inn, because it was indicated as being the one place where Snape had lived. This was just when I was doing up research, and I may be wrong, or may be right, but again, if I made any kind of goof-ups, please comment them, because, I mean, oh, that's right, that there was another character I should probably bring up. Fenrir Greyback. So Greyback was portrayed by Dave Agino. That I have no clue on who he was, but I probably may know him in some work. Like he was in Guy Ritchie's film Snatch. He was also in Elizabeth the Golden Age. He's been in the 2012 film The Raven, a crime thriller film set around Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, he's been an MMA competitor, excuse me, tongue twist, mixed martial arts. So, Fenrir Greyback. So, from what I remember him, he was, of course, a werewolf, and and that he ended up infecting Remus Lupin with lycanthropy. So he was one of the werewolves that ended up allying with Voldemort in the Second Wizarding War. Well, so Fenrir, of course, had been attacked and became a werewolf. So in his early life, he was infected. And then, well, it kind of seems that he has a penchant for bloodlust. Malfoy, Malfoy, Malfoy. But, so, you can pretty much tell that there is some significant character change for Malfoy, given that he was extremely arrogant and very much kind of, he's supposed to act like he was strutting like he was running the school, given the power that his father had, being one of the governors. Right up until he was sacked, of course. And, of course, having been in prison in Azkaban, that this ultimately just the very idea of Lucius being in Azkaban, it really set things off for Malfoy, and it kind of sent him on this downward spiral from being this cocky boy into being a very, very disturbed young man. But yes, fix it. At first when I saw this, I was going like, oh no. Because I was thinking of Chamber of Secrets, but then but yeah, I was expecting the instance where Lockhart ended up taking all of the the bones from Harry's arm, but Just a hat? I wouldn't say that. But I mean, I don't know. Over the course of these films, just kind of seems like Ron is. A lot of his good qualities have been pretty much shed away and amalgamized with other characters. Best known as Voldemort, of course. But so as a bit of a recap, the Owls, so Ron ended up getting 7, Hermione with 10. Now with Harry, he ended up getting exceeds expectations in potions, which kind of shoots down the hope of him being an orb, but of course. Obviously, Hermione. But, I think like in a couple of films back, the trio, Daniel, Rupert, and Emma, they were given homework on describing their characters, and but so in the instance, it kind of matches with each of their personalities. Like Harry would at least do up well, Daniel, in the case with Harry, he did up at least like pretty much like a summary, while Emma did like several pages on Hermione, and Rupert kind of just put off from doing anything. So the draught of living death. It was briefly touched up upon in the Philosopher's Stone when Snape was mentioning ingredients to Harry. Now, the property of the Half-Blood Prince. When I first came across this, I was going like, Half-Blood Prince? So there was a student that was associated with probably being... I mean, I kind of took the words literally. You could definitely tell there was a bit of a cut there. But, so in the instance of course, the book having those alternate instructions, it kind of mirrors with, like, how, like, in like earlier potions classes, a lot of the instructions differed significantly from but so so the classes, some of the instruction differed greatly from the potion books. So kind of seemed like the may have been like error on the author's part, or it's likely there would have been influence from obviously the ministry given. But there was a bit of an error in terms of how the draught of living death was portrayed. It's supposed to be one of the most intensely powerful sleeping potions, to where the drinker would be perceived as being dead, but living. So he is back at the Pensieve again. There was another fan film I ended up coming across called Voldemort: Origin of Evil. I've only saw it once, but it's Origins of the Air. But so Origins of the Air is kind of this story that settles around the descendants of the founders of Hogwarts. Yeah, so it's called Voldemort: Origins of the Air. so I would think that, I mean, but in the instance of like when Voldemort was Tom Riddle, but I wouldn't think that Tom would, of course, be a bad person. But I don't know. I mean, just I mean. I mean, maybe it's just me, but it kind of seems like through all the course of the films, the portrayal of Tom Riddle is just, I mean, he kind of seems almost like, I mean, just the way he is, it just kind of seems like he is like a total personification of evil incarnate. But, I mean, I don't know, it's... But yeah, well, I would think that you would think that Tom would have been like a pretty insecure young boy around this time, and that over the course of Hogwarts, he would have had like a drive. But of course, with that, it kind of is. It's kind of make him seems like he's almost like a Damien type of character, a sort of Antichrist. Well, at first, when I first saw this part, I didn't register that this would be the room of requirement. I mean, I thought of it as just like some large storage closet of sorts, but kind of looking back at it now, it did have some familiar architecture. Alright, so we're on to Cormac McLagan. He was portrayed by Freddie Stroma, who has been known for being both as an actor and a model, but he mostly had been doing acting work and even had been involved in theater when he was younger. He's only been in a number of works. I mean, some notable ones would include like Pitch Perfect and 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. And he's also been in a number of shows, but his most recent one, his most known one, would of course being him being introduced in the 6th season of Game of Thrones. Now, so I didn't quite touch up on, like, well, at this point, Harry Potter is already the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and obviously Oliver Wood would have already graduated from Hogwarts at this point. Him giving his wish of his team getting the Quidditch Cup. So yeah, and he ended up being in a professional Quidditch team soon after. But so I didn't touch up on Oliver Wood in the Philosopher's Stone commentary, but he was portrayed by Sean Biggerstaff, and he's not really much in any of the. He doesn't have much of a resume in terms of films or shows. He's done some theater and radio work too, but yeah, he's done. So he was in Cashback, directed by Sean Ellis. Now, Sean Ellis, I'm not really quite familiar with his directorial works. See, he's been in a number of works. I mean, besides Cashback, there's Hippie Hippie Shake and Mary Queen of Scots, and he would ultimately have a cameo in Part 2 of Deathly Hallows. The library, of course. Yeah, oh, that's right, Professor Flitwick. I know. You may be thinking of, why do I keep talking about Flitwick? Well, quite honestly, he is my top, he's my, well, quite essentially, he is my favorite Hogwarts professor. And in essence, I mean, he is remarkable in terms of a teacher. I mean, I'm not trying to goad him or anything, but I mean, just the idea of him being a charms master and a dueling champion, and him being a conductor for both the frog choir and the school orchestra. I mean, those are incredible feats. Ah, butterbeer. I'd always been wondering what this stuff actually is, and I've been curious wanting to concoct my own little brew, but I mean, I would think that would probably have to be like a bit of trial and error. And in other instances, I really want to try out making like an organic version of it. Because you would think that the idea of butterbeer, that stuff has to have like a lot of sugar in it. Yeah, I mean, of course, everything would be important, especially, I mean, given the importance of, well, I mean, Dumbledore always has an agenda, at least in some way. When I first saw this, I was going like, what is happening? I mean, this can't be an instance of possession. It just can't be. But then again, curses and hexes. But yeah, so I just remembered something in terms of like the continuity with like how the films were arranged. But so I had forgotten to mention that of course back during Order of the Phoenix, Ron was of course keeper at the time, and he would have been at least part of the championship game for the Quidditch Cup. And so upon looking up, like, actually reviewing the previous Quidditch teams, I also learned that it seemed that, so Charlie also was associated with the team that he was a seeker. But I mean, I just kind of, so upon reviewing like the past teams, I couldn't help but notice that in the earlier years, well, I think there was like a little bit of a mix-up somewhere, because at least according to the when I was looking up the Potter Wiki, it's been indicated that James Potter was a chaser rather than a seeker. But I mean, who really knows? I mean, kind of. So the opal necklace, that's another thing to probably discuss on. It's he ended up coming across it by accident back when he was in Nocturne Alley. But it's so, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for Harry to be suspicious of Draco being the one to actually have the necklace. So it's so there was the description that said on it back at Morgan and Burke's, "Do not touch, cursed, has claimed the lives of 19 Muggle owners to date." And that's another thing that kind of switched out, like, given the instance that Lavender Brown and Ron would have been in a relationship at this point, But it was right around this time that he would he would try to comfort Hermione, but also at the same time confess his own feelings to Ginny. But of course, but I would think that, I don't know. I think with that layout, just how it's been done, it's kind of almost like wanting to avoid my guess is that Hermione would even be more upset. But so the so so the Slug Club has been pretty much been kind of an exclusive gathering for Horace Slughorn, given that a lot of the students associated in it come from very different ranges of academic background. I mean, such as or an instance that's a lot of this comes down to where it comes to like social contacts. But an instance of the Slug Club, it's pretty much where Slughorn would, of course, over time build up a network, a social network of individual students that would, of course, give him access to all sorts of perks, such as, I mean, even free tickets to Quidditch games, given that some of his past students in the club would have been professional players. It would have been more specific if he was indicated as the head of house. Well, because, well, while he was Potions Master, he was also the head of Slytherin House. Just before, quite a long time before, Snape ended up taking the position of being head of house and Potions Master. Other differences. We never quite figured out what happened to Grimmauld Place. Given that Sirius was, of course, the sole owner of the location, and it would have been likely that, given that Harry was his godchild, Sirius would have left the place to him. So, in terms of the whole relationship with, like with the instance of, like, with Harry's feelings towards Ginny. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a. It kind of seems to be a barrier because of how, of course, Ginny was dating Dean Thomas at the time. I think it was all pretty much to psych out Hermione. Put him up for MVP. Oh, he never even touched it. Yeah, so relationships are a very complicated thing, and I can understand the situation quite well. Now, I may dive a little bit away from the book and the film, but I even myself had an instance of where I actually fell in love with a fellow classmate, and of course, it was right around at the time that I was transferred to a new high school, and she was pretty much the first friend that I ever made at that school. And I mean, I kind of got jealous of her in some instances, because, I mean, she always had that uplift personality, and in so many ways, it's, I mean, I just felt, I couldn't tell whether, if it was good, or if it was too overbearing. But she usually hung out at the library in some of the lunch breaks. So, but of course, I found out that she was already dating at the time, and I still wanted friendship with her, and I felt she blocked me out of her life, and over the years I just became more resentful of her. I never talked to her since. She is married with the same guy, and of course has children now. But I can understand exactly how Hermione and Harry felt. Excuse me. Luna? Oh? She's not that bad at all? Hmm. But you can definitely tell that over the course of this, it seems like Malfoy's becoming more and more conflicted. But you could tell that there is a level of good in him, even despite of his upbringing. It's like he's wanting to break away from all of it, but he's made the choice. And hearing the score, it kind of almost seems like me hearing something of like a James Bond film. It's kind of has that little vibe to it. Really? Really? is confidential. Well, he wouldn't go unless if it's, of course, business. Very serious business. But, so, around this time, with how Malfoy's supposed to carry out his mission to assassinate Dumbledore, it kind of seems that in this kind of manner, Snape was also trying to protect him along the way, given that there was the unbreakable vow that he took. Even Harry knows right off. It's just like more and more this takes place. I kind of thought the whole idea of Lavender and Ron was kind of like a bit of a thing, almost like a bit of a high school crush situation, but it kind of seemed like with this, it's all just very much an actual relationship happening, and with this, it's pretty typical. Like, oh, nuts. Oh, he still has the potions book. Oh. I mean, whether it's hatred or from conflicting judgment, it's pretty much all in Harry's mind that it's likely that, I mean, he understands that even Dumbledore can make mistakes, but in this instance, it's very uncertain of what Dumbledore's true motives are actually being. Wouldn't think Jeannie would pull that off. Yeah, it's quite possible she would have feelings to him, but she would rather have them come naturally. More for me than, thought Ron. Christmas at the Burrow. Mm-hmm. So Arthur Weasley at this time would have already gotten his promotion in the ministry. So originally he was with the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, but he then got promoted to being as the head of office for the detection and confiscation of counterfeit defensive spells and protective objects. Following the battle in the Department of Mysteries and the official declaration that Lord Voldemort had returned, this office was one of the several new divisions set up by the new Prime Minister. The new Minister for Magic, Rufus Scrimgeour, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Scrimgeour. In response to the crisis plaguing the country, its primary task was to confiscate fake protective spells and charmed objects, such as cursed sneakoscopes, or in one particular case, a medal that turned the user orange. While many such objects surfaced in the panic after Voldemort's return, the purpose of their creation was not always clear. Creators may have simply been profiteering, or it may have been something darker, as some of the confiscated articles were highly dangerous. Most of the perpetrators were described by Molly Weasley as people such as Mundungus Fletcher, who had not worked an honest day in their lives. However, occasionally, something exceedingly dangerous did turn up. So there were 10 people under him, under Arthur Weasley. So I didn't quite touch up on much on Arthur Weasley's actor, but I could probably get that underway because I kind of skimmed over that in the past few films. But he was portrayed by the English actor Mark Williams, who has been in a number of films. I think one of the earliest I ever saw him in was, of course, 101 Dalmatians, where he was portraying Horace, one of Cruella de Vil's goons, who in turn was portrayed by Glenn Close. He was also in The Borrowers, Shakespeare in Love. He's been in a number of television shows too, such as the Canterbury Tales. He was in a couple of Doctor Who episodes called Dinosaurs in a Spaceship and The Power of Three. But so he had been with the Royal Shakespeare Company during his theater years. In the words of Mystery Science Theater 3000, my lunch goes bleh. They really make Tom seem very kind of, I don't know. I mean, again, very Damien-ish. For those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology, I mean, Damien is the Antichrist in the Omen. But I kind of thought that, I don't know. But so, so there were a number of different actors that portrayed young Tom. So, back in the Chamber of Secrets, he was portrayed by Christian Coulson. He's not in a lot of works. He has a number of television roles, a lot of which I'm not very familiar with. But he's been in a number of audio dramas related to Doctor Who, such as The Bride of Peladon and The Haunting of Thomas Brewster. So, presently, he resides in New York, and he is both an actor and a director. But I would think that Christian Coulson, being as young Tom, I mean, I don't know, there's just something about him that kind of has that charm, and yet he kind of hides the malevolent intent. Now, the other Tom, as portrayed in Half-Blood Prince, was the student one was portrayed by Hero Fiennes Tiffin, who was, of course, a nephew under Ralph Fiennes. Now, he's not in much of any works either. Now, he did collaborate with Richard Griffins in Private Peaceful. swear, Ron is becoming more and more just, I don't know, just, I mean, if I compared him with the book version and the film version, I don't know, just stalking. What is Ron thinking? Well, what about Lavender? I mean, honestly, it's just qualities of Ron that are just so irredeemable. I mean, yeah, he may come across as a loyal friend, but just how he is as a person, it's just, I don't know, there's maybe tons of qualms about him that are just very unsettling. I mean, like his foul language, for one thing. And then there was, of course, like his... But, yeah, another thing that really kind of got me confused was how, like, a lot of the... was just how, like, a lot of the order would actually say the name directly. And oh, I kind of forgot that was the love potion that kind of got into him. Oh, What? Mm-hmm. Oh, to me, it would make a whole lot of sense of Ron actually going that way, because obviously Hermione was there the whole time when just right after it happened, and oh, I never got into who was well, many of you may be familiar with Bonnie Wright. She was Ginny Weasley, of course, but I'd never seen her in any other works outside of the Harry Potter ones, and with all that, she pretty much had been like all of the films. So she's only been in a number of works so far. Outside of Harry Potter, there's not really much. She's she's done, of course, some voice acting for the games. She's done some directing. A lot with I'm not familiar with. Oh, she wrote and directed. Oh, so the work is in specifically separate we come, separate we go. It's of course it's a short film from the look of it, from the description. One thing they kind of left out was the apparition classes, given that it's kind of a bit of like we had seen plenty of the different witches and wizards. Something's up. Can't help but feel bad for Draco, even after how bad of a person he had been. I mean, he was only confronting, but of course he had to, directly attack Harry. He was only out of defense. Ooh. But, I mean, the whole idea of how the Sectum Sempra curse was done, I mean, it kind of seemed like Malfoy was stabbed as opposed to being slashed. A rather dangerous curse when the incantation is uttered. Its effect is the equivalent of an invisible sword. It is used to slash the victim from a distance and results in deep wounds. The slash follows the user's wand movements. Due to the depths of the cut, the victims run the risk of dying from blood loss if treatment is not applied in time and if the wounds aren't instantly fatal. So, the spell that was uttered is ultimately called Vulnera Sonantur. And using wand movements along each of the cuts, and then altering the counter curse, it heals up the wounds. So it's supposed to be a song-like incantation of a healing spell. But wait a second. I mean, there are other practitioners of that? Just luck? Oh, one way to find out. I wonder how Felix Felicis would actually taste like. I mean, overconfident, arrogant, snarky. Felix. Felix does. Oh, such an upbeat moment, huh? What did you win, Slughorn? Are you sure there would be academic? Well, I would think that with Harry, any kind of living plant would actually freak him out at all. No idea, he says. Well, then, okay, so why say... Uh, mm-hmm. Loon. The pincers. Well... But yeah, it seems very unfortunate. I mean, you could even tell from Harry's face that even he feels bad for Hagrid, even under the effects of Felix. Since I haven't read the book, I wondered what happened to his children. Oh, oh, Hagrid. Honestly, can't even hold his liquor without passing out. I was very surprised that Lily just happened to be one of. If you ruin you. But yeah, at first I thought it. I was kind of curious of based on the continuity of like. But so. Yeah, it makes sense that Lily would have been at least one of Slughorn's students, given that he retired in '81. Well, so it's been said that so Lily was incorporated into the Slug Club because of her talent with potions. So so with that, it kind of ties in with how like she would have been a prize student even despite of her being a Muggle-born witch. So when I first saw how like all these memories ended up getting extracting, I thought it doesn't it like remove the memories upon extraction? I never quite understood the concept, but I understand now that perhaps memories couldn't be forcibly taken. I think that in such an instance, the memories were replicated. But then here's the question: how would he? how would he know anything about Horcruxes? That would be at least be restricted, wouldn't it? I mean, something of that kind of magic would at least be incorporated, like, so if it was put inside of a book, inside of the Hogwarts library, and that kind of knowledge is incorporated inside the book, wouldn't that kind of book be isolated inside the restricted section? I mean, that's kind of where the whole thing is. I'm kind of curious, because unless if Tom ended up finding the book in secret. No, not at all. It's not academic at all. It's quite clear that Tom wants absolute power. And to do that, he wants to be immortal. And in order to gain that immortality, he had to, of course, separate his soul into 7 pieces. So, in essence, the very big thing is what particular objects. I mean, when I first came across this, my theory was that there couldn't be just particular random objects. Voldemort would have to at least target specific ones and incorporate them as Horcruxes. So, I wasn't quite sure at first of how that actually went on. I mean, just that brief little. So, So right around this very moment, I was kind of considering, like, just how, like, I saw the degradation in Dumbledore's hand as a result of the ring, and it's clear that it's very corrupting. That's, and I think that kind of carries on in Deathly Hallows too. I mean, such negative power can corrupt and even possibly deteriorate anywhere. So, this Horcrux cave is, of course, the cliffs of Moher. Now, upon looking at this, I know some of the information may be wrong, given that, of course, Wikipedia, but it's said that they are sea cliffs located at the southwestern edge of the burned region in County Clare, Ireland. They run for about 14 kilometers. At the southern end, they rise. No. But I mean, overall, it's pretty much background info. But but it's a very big tourist attraction. So it drew in. I mean, since it's topped the list of attractions in 2006 by drawing almost 1 million visitors. But now I would think that ever since the release of the Half-Blood Prince, it climbed up more, given that this is an actual filming location. And that's kind of a big thing, especially with a lot of these films. Being at a lot of these different filming locations, and with that, kind of reliving those moments, just being at those sites. I mean, such as the instance with Jurassic Park. You could pretty much go to Hawaii and stand at those filming locations which were incorporated into the film. So in essence, filming locations, like, I could also guess that, well, I think like such the instance with Glencoe, which would be associated with the Scottish Highlands, given that it was supposed to be this it was the location of where Hogwarts would be located. And even Glenfinnan was also such a case. It's one such filming location where it's said to have been it's even connected with the Highlander series. the green potion. Such a thing left behind by Voldemort as a means of having as a sort of trap. As a means of gaining the Horcrux. When I first saw this, I couldn't help but maybe wonder that it triggered something inside Dumbledore. Like an instance of bad memories. I mean, not only that, but also the suffering. I mean, there's the physical, mental, and emotional agony all combined together. I heard the name Aberforth. Now, I think that it's just the look on Dumbledore's face. It's like regret and sorrow. No. I kind of thought that it would have connected with his past in some way. How... You would think that at least, unless that bowl itself, it couldn't... Oh no. Okay, that genuinely scared me. Witless, folks. And here are the Inferi. So, according to their description, they are dead bodies reanimated through the use of dark arts, specifically necromancy. So essentially, they are all living corpses. In the instance, it's likely that Voldemort had created a number of the Inferi through at least a collection of corpses. I mean, at least that's how I came to see it. So, according to the profile of the Inferi, it said that Voldemort had to have created an army inside the Horcrux cave with the use of a large number of people he had murdered and placed them inside of the lake. So that is supposed to be Slytherin's locket. So there, of course, at least had been 3 assassination attempts on Dumbledore's life. One would be the opal necklace, and perhaps it was either wine or mead. But, oh, and so there is another major difference here. So, Dumbledore was supposed to paralyze Harry. And so it is official. He is a Death Eater. He has the Dark Mark. Of course, because of his arrogance. Yeah, that's the big thing, isn't it? Just how Draco will be threatened to be killed. forgive my silence, folks, but I'm just speechless, even at this moment. Door. Oh my goodness. But, I mean, this... So, right about now... Oh... Harry would be intensely furious. He would... Now, in the book version, he was supposed to, of course, not just chase after the Death Eaters, but also attack. Don't call me a coward. That was another phrase. That was another quote that was from the book. But you would ask yourself, why is he the half-blood prince? Well, there is some origin behind it. Now, it's been said that, of course, Severus or Snape, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But so, it's revealed that Snape was, of course, a half-blood wizard. And of course his mother had the maiden name of Prince. A good wizard had fallen. If you have your wands at the ready, raise them. it was a very intense moment, everyone. I mean, I had to keep silent for it. Just, it's very much a vigil, and even vigils have moments of silence. And it's also important to even remember those who have been lost, especially given that given that some of the cast had passed away, such as, of course, Richard Harris, John Hurt, Richard Griffin, and of course, oh sorry, I'm Richard Griffiths, I'm sorry, but yes, and also Alan Rickman. Yeah, so to reiterate, Richard Harris, John Hurt, Richard Griffiths, and Alan Rickman. Well, not exactly. I mean, the Horcruxes are still out there. So, basically, it seems that Harry is presumably a Hogwarts dropout, but in this circumstance, it's for the intent of finding each of these Horcruxes, wherever they are, whatever they are. And so, Fawkes is finally returning to the wild. We are approaching fast to the final battle in the Second Wizarding War. It has only just begun. Again, I want to thank you all for listening to this commentary. again, I apologize for the long pauses. It's sometimes I get enthralled with the film, and sometimes it's very hard to ignore, and even focus tends to be kind of main priority. But I will be doing up a two-parter for the final commentary, so the Deathly Hallows will be back-to-back in one commentary. I will give instructions over the course of it, so for those who want to be taking part of it, I welcome you. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully, if I hear any comments from you, feel welcome to drop any requests, any recommendations, any suggestions for improving on the quality of these commentaries.